The Western Conference 9 vs 10 play-in will be the New Orleans Pelicans against the San Antonio Spurs. The same spot the Spurs saw themselves in last year, while the New Orleans Pelicans will have their first bit of postseason basketball since the departure of Anthony Davis. The point being, the core players of these teams that have been with these teams since they started their retooling and rebuilds do not have much playoff experience. And so the vets, such as CJ McCollum, Jonas Valanciunas, amongst others, will be important postseason experienced players to lead these teams through a single elimination 9v10 to then have to match up with the losers of 7v8. So how do these teams match up? And who do I think will have the best chance to reach the playoffs? Let's talk about it. The San Antonio Spurs have won 3 out of 4 matchups against the New Orleans Pelicans on the year. However, it is worth noting Brandon Ingram was ineligible for 2 of those. Let's start at center. The matchup of 2 former Toronto Raptors centers, Jakob Poeltl and Jonas Valanciunas. True traditional bigs, 2 guys who like to sit in the paint for the most part. But where this matchup could be interesting is if Jonas Valanciunas gets comfortable from deep in this game. If he can start to hit a couple of threes, if he could start to really space the floor against the San Antonio Spurs team and pull Jakob Poeltl out of the paint, this matchup gets very interesting for the Spurs because the Spurs don't really have any true power forwards. Keldon Johnson playing at the 4, who is undersized at that position, and Thaddeus Young no longer on the roster. They don't really have anyone other than true centers to put against JV. And Jakob Poeltl is not someone who's comfortable defending outside of the paint. He is a paint guy. He likes to rebound. He's a good post defender. He's a fine rim protector. But guarding JV on the perimeter, not necessarily his strength. And JV has played fine games against the Spurs this year, specifically from deep. He has shot quite well. And if that continues to be a trend where Jakob Poeltl leaves him open from deep, JV could have an advantage in this matchup and in turn open up a lot of space for this Pelicans offense. Now, although there is no size advantage at the center position, the Pelicans certainly have a size advantage pretty much everywhere else. Between power forward, small forward, and shooting guard, Pelicans will be using Jackson Hayes, Herb Jones, and Brandon Ingram. No true shooting guard with a lot of size, length, and defensive intensity and abilities. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs will have Keldon Johnson, who's more naturally a small forward, Devin Vassell, and Joshua Primo. Joshua Primo against Herb Jones or Brandon Ingram, that's a tough one from a size matchup. There is a lot of size advantage in this New Orleans Pelicans lineup. They will be able to dominate the paint, and they should be able to dominate the glass. The other area of advantage for the New Orleans Pelicans is playoff experience. The New Orleans Pelicans have 172 games of playoff experience under their belts. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs have 125. However, what is worth noting is that many of the young key players to the San Antonio Spurs currently have very little or no success. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Pelicans have a couple of key players and key vets who have significant experience in JV and CJ McCollum, who have combined for over 100 games of playoff experience, both who have made it to a conference finals, both of which who have had very good playoff performances. They are no stranger to the big stage and a big moment. And although the Pelicans don't have a significant advantage in playoff experience in terms of games played, where they do have the advantage is in their bucket getters who are going to be making their key shots, create an offense for them, getting key buckets down the stretch in the fourth quarter of what will likely be a close game in CJ McCollum. And Brandon Ingram's no stranger to a small moment either. He had time with the Lakers, with LeBron. He knows the pressure. But CJ McCollum has had big playoff performances before. He's had big playoff moments before. And that's not something that can be said for any of the key guys on the San Antonio Spurs who are going to be expected to get big buckets for them down the stretch, most notably Keldon Johnson and DeJounte Murray, who have little to no playoff experience. Now, it is worth noting, the San Antonio Spurs do have Greg Popovich behind their bench, who has a ton of playoff experience, a ton of NBA experience, and is arguably the best coach in NBA history. And although Willie Green has been very good for the New Orleans Pelicans this year as a coach, he's nowhere near Greg Popovich levels. And so in a single game elimination where you can throw things at a team and you have to make in-game adjustments to figure things out, that factor has to be included. But at the end of the day, defense is key in a single elimination game, which is something the Pelicans and Spurs are relatively even in. And having a key star, a bucket getter who can be poised under the moment and can get you clutch buckets is going to be crucial down the stretch of this game. And the Pelicans have two guys who are better at that than anyone on the Spurs. I will take Brandon Ingram, and I will take CJ McCollum over DeJounte Murray or anyone else on this Spurs team to close out a game and create a bucket. I think this will be a relatively close game. I don't think the Spurs will make this non-competitive. I think they'll make this very close down the stretch. But ultimately, I trust the Pelicans bucket getters more down the stretch than I do anyone on the San Antonio Spurs. I think these teams both have bright futures, but ultimately the Pelicans are better right now than the San Antonio Spurs are. Period. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below and who will advance between the Pelicans and the Spurs. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more NBA playoff content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.